The car is so cool it would steal an animal's name and make it its own. We're talking about the original pony car, the car named after a horse with the most horsepower. You see what I did? It's the Ford Mustang. The first generation Mustang came out in 1964 and a half. It's supposed to come out in 1965, but they made them a little bit earlier also. Lee Iacocca had huge influence on the design. He wanted a two-door, four-seater that had horsepower and was still fun. The Mustang started as a two-seater mid-mounted engine prototype known as the Mustang 1 prototype, or the T5 prototype, named after the airplane. The Mustang was in production 5 months before the official launch date of 1965. It was available in a two-door hardtop or a convertible. In September, you could get it in a 2+2 fastback variation. The Mustang had an original listing price of $2,368. That's just $20,000 in today's money. The Mustang sold over 1 million in the first 18 months of production. They sold 400,000 in the first year. The first generation Mustang was offered with 4 different engine variations, the biggest being a 4.7 liter V8, making a respectable 210 horsepower. In 1965, that was a lot. It had a facelift in 1967 and it got a little bigger, it got a little wider. The power relatively stayed the same. 68 came with a 302 V8, and 69 would see the Mach 1, the Boss 302, and the Boss 429 all being performance variants of the Mustang. The Boss 429 and Boss 302 were made homologation purposes so they could use the engines in racing. 22,000 Mustangs sold on the first day that it was offered. There was a man named Carroll, weird name for a guy, but Carroll Shelby took his 1967 Mustang, pulled the engine out, gave it more horsepower, put it back in, and sold it as a street legal race car that actually went racing. Well, it won a lot. Then in 1974, the second generation Mustang officially came out. The Mustang 2. We're not gonna spend too much time here. We like to forget about this part. It's pretty much just a Ford Pinto, smaller and more fuel efficient due to the oil crisis to keep up with cars like the 240Z. The 74, you couldn't even buy a V8 of the Mustang. It's a sin, so we keep it in the corner. We push it this way. We forget about it. Couple of performance variations. They brought back the Cobra name, just was all cosmetic variations, no power, nothing like that. The third generation saw the Fox Body Mustang be introduced. The Fox Body Mustang came with a million different trims. Here, I'll read them off for you. You could get the base model, the Ghia, the Cobra, the L, the GL, the GLX, the GT, the Turbo GT, the LX, the GT350, the SVO, and the Cobra R. Confusing enough? I think Ford learned a little something from Nissan on that one. You could get a V8, but it still didn't make all that much horsepower due to emissions regulations. 1987 saw the updated version, with the first version of the Fox body being called the Four-Eyed Fox. It has 4 eyes, look at it. More sleek, more aerodynamic, but still very boxy version. In 1982, the return of the Mustang GT. The convertible was also brought back during this time. 84 saw the Mustang SVO. This is the Four-Eyed Fox. Came with a turbo 2.3 liter, which, I mean, they tried. They gave it a shot, but the updated 87 GT model will get the 302 5-liter V8, this time being fuel injected for the first time, which made a decent amount of horsepower. In 1993, the newly developed Ford SVT Special Vehicles team went to work on the Mustang. They did a little tinkering. They came out with the Cobra and the Cobra R. And now the Cobra R was good. It was nice. It was fast. But they didn't make all that many, so they're kind of rare nowadays. If you have one or you find one, keep it. The fourth generation came out and the SN95 Mustang was introduced. Took some styling cues from the original Mustang, but they made them round and bubbly, and it looks like a 90s car. I mean, they were all right. The base model came with a V6 making just 145 horsepower, so they were slow. The GT model now had a modular 4.6 liter V8 with a single overhead cam making 215 horsepower, which is 5 horsepower more than they made in 1995, 30 years later. In 99, Ford came out with the New Edge Mustang, which was technically the same platform as the SN95, but it had sharper lines, bigger wheel arches, and more creases in the body line, making it look a lot better. The V6's horsepower was bumped up to 190 in 99, and the 4.6 liter V8 now made 260 horsepower. 03 and 04 saw the return of the Mach 1, which had a shaker hood, which is cool. The Terminator Cobra, which was the first seriously fast Mustang that they made. Made 390 horsepower out of their supercharged 4-valve 4.6 liter V8. Had forged rods and a forged crankshaft. The 5th gen or SN197 Mustang finally went back to the original looks of the Mustang with its boxy lines and vertical taillights. It looks like a Mustang. It looks damn good. The interior, they kept it simple and smooth, just like the original Mustang. People loved it when it came out. The GT model was bumped up to 300 horsepower, this time still using the 4.6 liter V8, but it had 3 valves instead of 2, still single overhead cam. But it also had VCT, or Ford's version of VTEC, basically a variable cam. 2010 saw a facelift, made it a little bit more aerodynamic, a little bit smoother, but still kept the boxy look. The engines wouldn't get updated until 2011. The V6 now made 305 horsepower with 24 valves. That's more than the 4.6 V8 from the year before, which is crazy. The brand new V8, back to the 5.0. The Coyote engine was introduced, making 412 horsepower. And the Coyote engine is still what's being made today, and it's good. You slap a supercharger on there in stock form, they're fast. The Shelby GT 500 was back, and this was the last car that Carroll Shelby ever worked on before he died in 2013. In 2011, it was a 5.4 liter aluminum block V8 making 550 horsepower. Just 2 years later, it would get so much better. The 2013 GT 500 now had a supercharged 5.8 liter V8 making 662 horsepower. That's a lot for a factory car. That's a lot. And then the 6th gen was introduced in 2015. The S550 used the same engines as the previous generations, just with minor updates and made a little bit more horsepower. They brought back the 2.3 liter turbocharged engine with direct injection this time, and it made decent power. It was all right. They finally got rid of the solid rear axle, independent rear suspension. Hello, Ford. Welcome. Japan's been doing this since the 90s. I'm glad you could join us. That means the new generation Mustangs handle well. They don't just go straight, they go sideways. In 2018, the 10-speed automatic was introduced, and the V8 now made 460 horsepower. If you don't know, the 10 speeds are fast. You just sit at red line. You just ba 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 ba. In 2020, the GT 500 would be back, and it would be the best Mustang ever made. The 5.2 liter Predator engine. It's called a Predator engine. What do you expect? A little wimpy 100 horsepower? No, try 760 with a Root style supercharger. It had aerodynamic upgrades, and it had independent rear suspension, meaning it was a track monster. It was faster than the Camaro and the Challenger, which both made more horsepower at the track. Then they came out with the Mach-E, and well, let's be honest, that's not a Mustang. It's like what they did to the Eclipse. They killed it. They murdered it. We just keep that guy locked up like a criminal he is. We put him in the cage and we lock it, okay? It's like Fight Club. We don't talk about Fight Club. That's rule number 1. You don't talk about the Mustang Mach-E. Even though I've seen like 4 of them in the last 2 days, and every time I do, I want to cry, just a little bit. They made over 10 million Mustangs total, which is crazy. That's a lot of cars. So you probably know somebody that's driven a Mustang, or you've driven a Mustang yourself. I had a Mustang. I had a Fox body. The 2024 Mustang was announced, but we don't know very many details about it. We know that it looks all right. It doesn't look terrible. Less round and more pointy than before. Still making good 500 horsepower. Just like all V8s, it's doomed for extinction. Unfortunately, I think Ford will make the Mustang fully electric at some point. It'll be a sad day. A sad, sad day. If you want me to go into more details on a certain generation or platform, then I definitely can. But there's just so many Mustangs that it's impossible to fit them all into one video. So maybe I'll go over the specific generations in a different video. But maybe you're more of a Dodge fan. Maybe you like the Viper. Check out this video here if you do. Make sure to subscribe and like the video. Appreciate that. I'll see you next time. That's all I've got for now. Go buy a Mustang. Don't hit any crowds. All right.